Do you wax before you kayak? Well, I've started to, and we're going to look at why and what wax makes the biggest difference. I'm not talking about that type of wax, I'm talking about waxing your paddles. So join me on another little science experiment as we try and work out if it helps, and if so, what is the best wax to use. Hey everybody, and welcome to another Adventures Out video and another sciencey experiment video. Now these aren't meant to be taken as real science experiments, they're kind of just for my own self-knowledge, but also they might help you along the way. The last one we looked at was looking at my dry bags and how reliable they are. If you haven't seen that video, click on the card above and you can go back and watch that. I filmed that yesterday and we're going to use basically the same equipment for this little experiment as we did yesterday. So I've got the same tank of water that I had yesterday, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at whether waxing your paddles, your paddle blades in particular, helps keep water out of your inflatable kayak. Now, most inflatable kayaks like mine don't have a spray skirt, so water can get into the boat quite easily. The good thing about inflatable kayaks is they have a lot of inherent buoyancy, so they're quite easy to empty out while you're on the water, but I still don't like getting water in the boat from my paddles. Yeah, I have quite an aggressive paddle stroke, which means that my paddle is quite vertical when I'm paddling, which means the end of the paddle that's not in the water is above, basically directly above my boat. And what happens is, whilst I've got drip rings on the paddles, it doesn't help that much. Water comes down the paddle, drips off the drip rings and into the boat. Maybe I'd have been better off with a longer paddle, but I love my paddle, so I'm not going to change it now. I can't remember where I heard it. It might have been on another YouTube video, but I heard that putting wax on the paddle blades can help. But while I was in Cornwall, I actually got into a little bit of bodyboarding. I've never done bodyboarding or surfing before, and I was watching lots of YouTube videos on bodyboarding, and particularly about how to wax your bodyboard. And I was thinking, why do you wax your bodyboard, or your surfboard in that matter? And I used to think it was so that it skimmed through the water better, because I remember being a kid and having a sledge going in the snow with my parents and sledging down a hill. I'd put candle wax on the runners of the sled, and that's supposed to have made it go quicker. Whether it did or not, I don't know. But then I thought about waxing your bodyboard. That's not actually for better movement through the water, it's actually so you can grip onto the bodyboard better. Well, actually, why is it easier to grip onto the bodyboard where it's waxed? And that's because the water doesn't stay, it stays fairly dry. And I'm wondering, if I put wax on my paddle blades, whether the water will just fall off the paddle blades before it even gets over my boat. So we're going to look at 3 different types of wax and see which one's best versus not putting any wax on at all. Now, I have actually been out on the sea with wax on before, so I need to go and get my paddles. I need to clean off any wax that's on there, and we're going to do a control without any wax. And what we're going to do is we're going to dunk a blade, just one blade, into my water, and then we're going to move it as quick as possible over a bowl that's over a scale, and we're going to weigh how much water comes off within about 5 or 10 seconds to see if the water's going to come off the paddle blade as it's lifted out of the water, or it's going to stick to the paddle blade and then sort of drip off over the weighing scale. It's not massively scientific, but we'll see if there's one significant difference between firstly no wax versus wax, and then the 3 different kind of waxes we're going to look at. And the 3 different kind of waxes we're going to look at your basic candle wax. I might soften it up a little bit with some heat, and then I'm just going to rub the candle wax over my blades and see how that does. Then I've got some fairly expensive car wax that I use on my car and my van. When you put it on the car, it makes the water bobble up nicely and it doesn't stick to the car, so maybe that will be a good wax. And then the final wax I've got is the actual surf wax that I bought for my bodyboard while I was in Cornwall. Let me know in the comments what you think the outcome of this experiment is going to be, and whether you actually would consider waxing your paddles if this experiment shows that it does actually help. Let's get on with it. Before we go any further though, if you're enjoying this video so far and you're excited about what's to come, please do give it a thumbs up by clicking the thumbs up button or the like button at the bottom of your screen. And if you want to see more of this kind of sciencey, kind of pseudo science experiments, I guess, from me about kayaking, then please do subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it'll mean that you're notified every time I upload a new video. And it's subscriptions, likes and comments that really help out a small channel like mine grow and reach its full potential. Anyway, let's get on with this mini science experiment. First thing I need to do is put some more water in my tank, just so I can get the blade fully submerged. Okay, they're going to be my scales, nice and steady table, and that's going to be my collection bowl to collect any water that's still dripping off the paddles once we've moved them from the water bath. So the next job is to get the paddles out of the bag and clean off any wax that's still left on them from the last time I was out paddling. So in this water I've just got warm water from the hot tap in the kitchen. I'm going to use this and this orange cloth to just make sure I've got all the wax off one of these blades. Hopefully the hot water should soften it up and allow me to wash it off. I might get wet in the process, but never mind. Seems to be working. I know how the Kayaking felt. Right, let's give it a dry. One of these clean ones. Hopefully you can see that there's no wax left on those blades, or that blade. Alright, I'm going to set a timer for 10 seconds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dunk the paddle blade into the water, and I'm going to bring it out so the blade is perpendicular to the water, so I'm not sort of spooning any water out. And I'm going to move it straight over the top of the bowl, like so, and we're going to look at how many grams of water collect in the bowl after 10 seconds. Hopefully these scales are sensitive enough that it's going to register something. Here we go with the first one. This is the control with nothing on the blade. So I'm just going to dunk it in there and then bring it out. So it's flicking between 13 and 14 grams there. It was on 14, and there it will go back to 14. So roughly 14 millilitres of water. That was with the control. So let's try putting one of the waxes on now and see what difference it makes. Okay, so the first one we're going to try is just a standard candle wax. So this is one of our candles from one of our ornaments that is never lit. It has been lit once before, but it's melted just in the sun because it was on a windowsill. So it's a bit, you know, it's quite a hard candle wax. So I guess the main problem is going to be how easy it is going to be to apply to the blade. I don't know, maybe I might have to soften it up a little bit with some heat, but we'll see. Next thing to do is completely dry this blade off again though. Right, so I'm hoping plenty of coverage there and not too bad in terms of smoothness. Okay, let's try the next test. Just going to empty that out actually. Zero that again. There we go. Okay, 10-second timer is ready. Here we go. And there you go, only 5 grams that time. Pretty much same conditions, but with candle wax on the blades. And that was, yeah, a third, just over a third of the water stuck to the blade. That's quite an impressive result actually, quite pleased with that. Let's try the next wax. Now, next wax on the list is my car wax. This is my go-to car wax that I use on my car and my van when I can be bothered, which is not often. The good thing about this wax is it comes with a really good applicator, which I'm hoping is going to make it easy to actually put on the blades. But let's give it a try. Okay, that's the candle wax removed. It was quite tricky actually, which makes me a little worried about the test after the car wax. I'm going to do the car wax next. I'm wondering if it's going to be easy to remove the car wax. I have got some body prep car shampoo which is meant to remove all old waxes, so I might try that. Otherwise I'll just use the other blade, but I wanted to really use the same blade just in case there was any tiny size difference or shape difference, but I wouldn't have thought there is, so okay, I've had this car wax for quite a while, so it's maybe not in the best condition, but hopefully using this applicator will soften it up. Let's see how well it goes on. It goes on a lot nicer than the candle wax, that's for certain. Okay, nice and covered. And let's get on with the test. So I'll get my timer ready. Empty out the water from the previous test. Okay, here we go. So put the paddle in for a few seconds up to the drip ring. And then there you can see the result is pretty much the same, maybe slightly more, so it's flicking between 5 and 6 grams, but pretty much stable on 5 now, which was exactly the same for the candle wax. So let's try and buff it up now and see if that makes a difference rather than having the wax, raw wax on it. Okay, so it's all nicely buffed up, very shiny, very slippy. I wouldn't want to put this wax on the handle, that's for certain. So let's see if this makes a difference. Give it a dunk. Okay, so that is interesting. It's not quite as high as the result with no wax on at all, but it's not far off at 13 grams. If you remember, it was 16 grams, I think, or 14, 15, I can't remember. I'll put it on the screen what it was with no wax on. So that's pretty much back to how it was. So I'll still give it another clean in the hot water, but I'm pretty confident that it's not going to affect the result for the final test. Okay, so the last wax I'm going to try is the stuff that I bought while I was on holiday for my bodyboard, and I have actually been out on a paddle with this on my paddles. So I've got a little bit of an idea of how well this is going to do, but I don't know how well it's going to do versus the other waxes, so let's take a look. One thing I do know is it was quite difficult to apply. So as far as I know, and I'm no expert on surf waxes, basically surf wax for warm water and surf wax for cold water. This is surf wax for cold water because obviously we're in Britain and the water is relatively cold. So it does make it a little bit more of a harder wax, I believe, which makes it a little bit more difficult to apply for this particular use. It comes in kind of like little bars of soap, like that. See if I can get it focused. It's very difficult, my camera's kind of upside down. That's what we're going to apply to the blade as best we can. So this was quite tricky to apply. It also doesn't look very good when it's on there. don't know, maybe you can get different colours of wax. It smells pretty good though. Pretty complete covering, but it's a bit of a mess. I'm just going to give it a bit of a rub down just to try and take some of the main bobbles of wax on it, but it's definitely not pretty. You know, people will definitely know you've got wax on your blade, but hey, if it works, what does it matter? Maybe you can get a wax that matches the colour of your blades. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see if this works. Right, timer's ready. Let's go for the dunk. Up to the drip ring. Well, even I can't quite believe that result. Even though I had been out on the paddle and I know that this stuff worked, I didn't realise how good it was actually. And there was a couple of drips into the bowl that I saw, but it's barely registering anything. It's flitting between 1, maybe 2 with the breeze. So I think it's probably 1 mil of water. I mean, there is some still in there, but that's mainly from the other tests. All in all then, I think that was a pretty good success, and it shows that the candle wax and the car wax do make a difference, but the surfboard wax makes a huge difference to the amount of water that sticks to your blade, and potentially can reduce the amount of water that gets in your boat if you don't have a long paddle like I do and have an aggressive paddle stroke where the paddle goes over your head, where the paddle is nearly vertical when it's in the water. So I hope that's helpful to you. If you want to see more of these kind of science experiments, and if you've got a suggestion for one I can do, then please do stick it in the comments or message me, whatever, and I'll see if I can do it. Otherwise, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.